Joining us now, Republican Congressman from Florida, Representative Connie Mack, and in Washington, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist and associate editor of the Washington Post and MSNBC political analyst, Eugene Robinson. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us.
Governor, you were just talking about the Connie Mack connection in your life.
Well, Connie Mack, of course, was the great manager of the Philadelphia A's. The stadium was named after him, and I was just saying to
Was that your grandfather?
My great-grandfather.
How cool.
Yeah.
And really, one of the great people who made baseball what it is today. And the most amazing thing is he managed in the dugout in a business suit, tie, and hat.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and I was saying that's because the uniforms were made of all wool.
No,
So the suit was a lot cooler.
Better
smart man.
A little hot back then. So Connie, we've been talking a good bit, obviously, about the debt. You look at the front page of the USA Today. The United States owes $62 trillion. We owed $5 trillion more dollars in 2010. Added to the debt in 2010. These numbers don't add up. What do? We've got a big showdown coming with the debt ceiling. What do we do?
Well, let me tell you what my plan is. And first of all, thank you all for having me on. What my plan does is pretty simple. We cut 1% of spending every year for 6 years. In the 7th year, we cap spending at 18% of GDP. In the 8th year, we balance the budget, and after 10 years, we cut $7.5 trillion. This is simple, so think about this. Everybody who's watching today, whether it's their home budget or their business, has had to take more than 1 penny out of every dollar of their budget.
Right.
And all we're saying to the federal government is, you can do the same thing. The American people have had to deal with this. The American people have had to make sacrifices. Certainly the federal government can take 1 penny out of every federal dollar.
And so is that 1 penny of what is projected to be spent over the next 10 years in the president's budget?
So what it is we take the spending of this year, so it's something like $3.8 trillion. We take 1% of that, so it's roughly $38 billion for this year, and roughly the same thing every year after that. So yes, it takes out what the projected growth would be, and you know how it is in Washington. Right. They talk about when you, a cut in spending being a reduction in the rate of growth. What we're talking about here is a 1% cut, and it can happen in one of two ways. Either the Congress and the President will work together to make the requisite cuts. They'll find the places to make the cuts. If they're unable to do that, it would be an across-the-board cut.
Connie, how would you account for inflation, though?
Well, that's the thing. So what we've done is we've taken the budget of this year, and like I said, it's $3.8 trillion or something like that, and we cut 1%. Next year, we cut 1% off of that number. So we actually bring this curve down, the spending curve down. People, I mean, look at the headlines. People know that we're in trouble. We have a fiscal nightmare ahead of us. And if we don't get serious about cutting spending, we're not going to be able to pay our debts. Yeah. So what we've said, the RSC, the Republican Study Committee, has said, if you want to raise the debt ceiling, there are a number of things that we want before we'll vote for that, and one of those is my bill.
Hey, Gene, Connie just said Americans know that we've got to cut spending and we've got to cut the debt. They may say that in the polls. I don't think they do know that. I don't think they understand that even under the Paul Ryan plan, which has been branded as radical by the White House and Democrats and by a lot of people in the media, the U.S. debt goes up $6 trillion over the next decade, even under this supposedly, quote, radical plan. We're in big trouble. I don't think people understand it yet.
I think people understand it in the abstract. When you get to the concrete that there's a problem, what exactly are you going to cut? And it's always, cut this other program, don't cut mine. So that's where the big question mark. It sounds great to cut a penny out of every dollar, but it depends where you cut it. Are you going to cut it from the defense budget? You're going to cut it from so-called discretionary spending, which is really just a pretty small slice of the budget. Where does it come out?
But, Gene, we do, putting Connie's specifics aside for a second, though, doesn't make sense for us to make cuts now, even if it's a penny out of a dollar, however you want to say this. I mean, if we don't face up to this crisis soon, we're going to have to make some really draconian cuts 5-10 years from now, aren't we? If we even make it that far.
That's true, Joe, but do you do it right now? You saw the economic numbers for this month. The economy is trying to struggle back to its feet, hopefully get back on an upward glide path. So is that when you want to be making cuts in government spending, which after all is a big contributor to the economy, like it or not?
Governor?
Well, two things. Gene's right about people. In Pennsylvania, people all wanted the budget to be cut. When Governor Corbett, true to his word, cut education funding by $1 billion, 98% of Pennsylvanians said, we don't want education funding cut to balance the budget. So he's right there. Two, the beauty of Connie's plan is it is gradual. So you don't have the effect on the economy that you would if you took all of it out at one time. But can I ask Connie a question?
Sure.
Connie, one of your colleagues, Congressman Chaka Fattah, has proposed a penny transaction tax, that every financial transaction in the United States gets taxed a penny. So when you do a credit card purchase, a penny goes to the federal government, maybe to a deficit reduction fund. A stock transfer, you buy stock, a penny. Would you support that?
No, we don't.
Why not?
Because we don't need more revenue.
Yeah, we do.
No. This is no, we don't.
Gene, speak up.
The American people are tired of the federal government paying for things that they don't want, they don't need, and they don't deserve. I mean, look, I'll give you an example. Amtrak. We spend $1.5 billion a year in subsidizing Amtrak. The federal government,
he's going right there with you here. Go ahead.
No. What I would say is there are corridors that Amtrak is very successful.
I agree with that.
I agree with that,
and those would stay. But look, there are areas of Amtrak
absolutely
that people sitting at home watching right now going, I don't want my money going to subsidizing that part of Amtrak that is failing.
Connie is absolutely right.
We can make
there
these
are parts of the budget that can be cut and eliminated. It's not our core function. But it's not enough. Connie, every economist will tell you, you need to do deficit cuts, but we need to increase revenue too.
Let me ask about Pentagon spending. We talk a good bit about Afghanistan here. $2 billion a week, an endless war. Isn't it time to start drawing down in Afghanistan rapidly?
Let me say this. I would be in favor of defense cuts. I'm not one of these Republicans that says we can't. Everything has to be on the table. And I would say this too. I don't remember who said it. The people in my district, they get this debt and deficit problem. They might not know what $6 trillion looks like compared to $100 billion, but they get it that we're broke, and it scares them. It scares them, the idea that they look at Washington and say, we've lost our homes, we've lost our jobs, we don't have the money to spend on food and clothing that we used to have, and you can't take 1 penny out of every dollar.
Okay, so everything has to be on the table except for taxes or generating revenue.
No, I say we generate revenue.
Everything has to be on the table.
Everything's on the table. I don't believe we do taxes. Here's what I mean. Here's how you increase revenue. You have a pro-growth policy. You were talking about it in your segment beforehand. You have a policy that talks about reducing taxes. You have policy that talks about reducing regulations. Let the entrepreneurial spirit, let the entrepreneurial spirit get back into the game. Right now they're sitting on the sidelines because they're getting punished by government.
So, Gene, let me ask you this, because you let out that Al Gore side.
I heard it.
You heard the Al Gore side when the supply siding talk began. But so here's the $64,000 question, Gene. How do we come up with a budget deal that will allow us to raise the debt ceiling, that will get the spending cuts that Connie Mack is going to demand to vote for it, and it's going to get the revenue increases that Chaka Fattah is going to demand? Because we're going to have to come up with a pretty grand compromise to raise the debt ceiling, and people are going to have to support things that they don't want to support. Do we get there?
Well, maybe, I think if you put Ed Rendell and Connie Mack in a room, you'd probably come up with something, actually. If people could be reasonable. I think the idea of a spending cut that is gradual as opposed to all at once, I think that's probably right. I do think revenue's got to be on the table. This is a big country, and taxes are at fairly near historic lows. Put everything on the table. Look in terms of a gradual path to a better fiscal balance. There's room for a solution there if people would sit down and talk about it.
All right. Thanks a lot,
Congressman Connie Mack.
Connie,
thank you very
so
much for being on the show.
You sort of got the support of Ed Rendell and sort of theory.
All right, we'll take
if
that.
everything's on the table, then everything has to be on the table, Connie Mack.
Okay. Now Mika wants to raise your taxes. So what's that?
Eugene will be reading your latest column in today's Washington Post. Thank you.